It's 8:30, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. John?
Well, yes, with the two board members that are here in person and the others that are on.
Three.
Three.
Yeah.
I wasn't counting you.
No.
Okay.
I wasn't counting Rick.
Oh, you're okay.
With three board
He's only
members
the president.
present in the room and others on video conference. I can confirm that there is a quorum. Also, I can confirm that the meeting was properly noticed through the various media that we have to do that. Also, I'm going to go ahead with approval of the minutes. The minutes from the November 19th meeting were distributed to all the board members. And I think everybody's had a chance to read them. And and I asked for comments and everybody seemed to be okay. If there's any, well, first of all, I'll make a motion that we approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Anybody have any comments about it?
Oh, no, really good.
If not, then all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, carry 7-0.
Do we have seven?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Greg is on, but if he is called away on his work call, he did send me a proxy, so I can vote for
He
him.
turned his camera on though, just for a moment. and
Yeah,
said
yeah.
yes.
But, pull this off here. I'll show you, John. I do have his proxy
Okay,
in
thank you
case.
very much.
Okay, so anyway, well, welcome everybody. We've started out this year with a couple of challenges. We had the big snow here, the latter part of December. And if any of you were up here and saw it, it looks like an ice storm went through here. There's branches and trees down everywhere. So quite a bit of snow. Along with that, we've basically destroyed our snow removal budget already. So
Well, it was last year's that we
Okay.
destroyed. You'll see
Okay.
that, you'll see that very soon.
So anyway, had some weather here, and then here lately, it's been fairly nice for the time of the year. Maybe a storm coming in again next week. So the other big thing that we've had around here, COVID's hit up here. We've had some challenges with the staff, and I want to thank everybody for stepping up. I know Gary, Paige, and Tim work from home several days, due mostly to contact. And I want to give a big thank you to Elisa. For those of you that don't know, Elisa was on vacation in Mexico and came back early
4 days ago.
to help take care of things. So Elisa, thank you very much. So with that, we'll go ahead and ratify the budget.
No, over the financials first.
We'll go over financials first. Okay. Okay, well then we'll go ahead and review the financials.
Okay, Gary, do you have that to put up on the?
I do somewhere.
I never got it, but I'm not in it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Hang on one second.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so what we're looking at today is the year-end financial reports for 2021. as of December 31st. This is a draft. There may yet be a smattering of adjustments made as the last of the billing and payments come in from 2021. Matter of fact, the draft we were working on yesterday when we had a meeting with staff to go over this, there were some changes made, and I've noted those changes on my copy. What you're looking at is the result of that. And so bear with me if I get a number wrong here and there, it's because I'm looking at two different versions of this report in front of me. So on the balance sheet, under current assets, worthy of note, accounts 105, 107, 108 is that's our reserves. So our permanent reserves right now totals $848,818. So we're in good shape on reserves. Account 105, just in case anybody's wondering, that's where we carry the money that eventually gets paid to Glacier for the resort fees on rentals that we collect and then we transfer over to them. So that's just a holding account for those. Accounts receivable, account 132, scroll down a little bit. Yeah, okay. Looks like a big number. It is a big number. And the reason for that is that that reflects our first quarter billing that went out early part of December. And so that number will decrement down month to month as those billings are recognized January, February, and March, and we're not to the end of January. We're not even looking at January. We're looking at December 31st. So that's the full billing for the first quarter for owner's assessments. Going down a little bit further, under fixed assets, that's all the common areas in the lodge, plus units 110, 114, and 115. Of course, 114 is right here behind us. Became part of the conference room. Down to liabilities and equity. Account 240. This is the converse of account 132 and accounts receivable. It's the deferred revenue that'll be recognized for the first quarter billing of HOA assessments. Going down further, a lot of people always ask about this equity accounts 320 and 321, unrestricted fund beginning balance and reserve fund beginning balance. Elisa, do you want to tell us what that is?
So the
This is a CPA thing.
yeah. So it's both it's the sum of all prior years' incomes and losses since the beginning of TACO as of December 31st, or you can consider it the assets minus the total liabilities. So we've got total liabilities up there, and then you see the total assets.
So it's safe to say that since the beginning of TACO time in 1974, we're about $1 million ahead, almost $1 million ahead.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and income statement. All right. Whoops, I'm out of order here. Hold on a second. Bear with me. Okay, so this first section is our income revenues, multiple sources of revenues that we have. Assessment fees is the top one. There's a small difference between. Back up a little bit. So the two columns you want to zero in on are the two left side columns, the annual budget and the year-to-date budget. match all the way down because we're at the end of the year. If we were looking at a partial year financial report, then the year-to-date budget would only reflect a portion of the annual budget for comparison to the year-to-date actual spending. So year-to-date actual spending is the column on the left, far left, and then the budget for the year is the column on the which matches year-to-date budget is a column in the middle. So you can look and compare those two to see how we performed against that budget throughout the year for all of these accounts. So there's a slight difference in the assessment fees. This is due to our TV and internet billings and payments, and the fact that there could be slight variations in the number of households paying for the monthly fees for those two services throughout the year, because it varies. It can change by 1 or 2, so a small difference. Maintenance revenue, a little bit lower than anticipated. It's just kind of the way it was. There weren't as many maintenance calls. So we adjust the budget for next year to account for that. Anything that matches up pretty closely, I won't comment on. 416, service and collection fees, much lower than budget. This is primarily due to fewer and fewer delinquencies. During the initial part of the COVID period, we had a few delinquencies, people with COVID problems that weren't able to pay their bills, but that seems to have passed, and pretty much everybody is keeping up now. So we don't have as many of these late fees and interest charges go on owners' accounts. 420 transfer fees. This is it $300 now?
350 now.
350 now.
It was, so this number is the 300.
This is the
Yeah.
300, yeah. This is the $300 per property closing. We had what, Gary, 55 property closings this year?
This, I think it's 53, but
53.
yeah, it's about that.
Yeah. So
53, 55.
that number is well above budget because of just the sheer quantity of property closings we have this year. Everything else looks pretty good. And if you look at the bottom line down there, just a couple $1,000 difference, and not even that actually, in the budget to actual. So pretty good. Going down to the next category, which is administrative expenses. Look at that. Okay, so insurance. We always go over slightly on insurance because we actually, when we get a renewal in October, that's when our policy renews. What is it, October 1st, right?
Yeah.
So we get 3 months at the new rate, whatever it is. And of course, we aren't able to budget for that a year in advance. So that ends up being a slight difference, but pretty good there anyway. Accounting costs. This is what we pay Meadows and Associates downtown to provide any services. They were in the past reviewing our financial reports on a periodic basis, primarily in advance of these meetings. When our accountant got COVID and was hospitalized for quite a while, that kind of got suspended, and we realized we really didn't need that. So at this point, all they're really doing is our taxes. So that the number reflects the what we paid for our tax returns preparation and filing for this year. We of course have an auditor in Grand Junction that takes care of the, cross-checking us and being the third party sanity check for our, so we didn't think we needed a fourth party involved. Let's see, assessment fees uncollectible, big zero there because we didn't have any write-offs where owners were just ultimately didn't pay their dues, and we had to write off those charges. We have done write-offs like that in the past, but this year we haven't had to, and that's good news. Legal fees and consulting is low. This probably falls right in line with the fewer delinquencies, fewer write-offs. A lot of our legal work is involved in chasing down owners who don't pay their dues, filing liens, sometimes actually filing foreclosure notifications and starting that process. And so we've been doing less and less of that. And so we came in under budget on legal fees, and that's always a good thing. Director's expense, lower there because for the most part, with COVID, we had a lot more board members zooming into meetings rather than traveling, because that budget really primarily almost wholly covers board members' travel and expenses to come in for meetings. Auditing and consulting fees, a little bit over budget there. Again, this is our auditing. This is our third-party auditor. And this was also compensation that I was receiving for contributions to the HOA that isn't happening anymore. So that number is going to go down considerably next year. What's our auditing bill?
It
8,000?
was, I think it was 8,000.
8,000. So that'll go down to 8,000. Annual meeting, almost right on budget, pretty good there. Web services, this is a variety of the services that we get. You probably got the notification that we're no longer using Vintium, which was an HOA type platform of services that we decided it was just not doing what we wanted it to do, so we dropped that. Payroll processing, that's over budget because with all the background checks we had to do for new employee hires, we started putting that in this budget, for lack of another place to put it, so it's a little over. See, moving down, looking for big discrepancies again. 576, the marketing and promotions. This is our social media presence and merchandise purchases that we end up selling the merchandise, so there's revenue on that. And that's a little bit over budget, but not a big deal really. Administrative salaries, large amount over budget on that. And that was primarily due to staffing changes this year. We elevated Elisa from business manager to general manager, and we elevated Paige Coleman from just front desk employee to HR and front desk manager.
Mhm.
So both of them got substantial increases, and that's reflected there. Employee benefits, for some reason, we always seem to over budget on this. This is primarily health insurance, and it just, for some reason, we always find that we have less people taking advantage of the health insurance than we thought would. So it's kind of a moving target. And that pretty much covers it for that category. And again, if you look at the bottom line, 481 to 487, we underspent by a little bit, so that's real good. Go to the 600 operations accounts. This is all of our maintenance functions for the property. Building maintenance, again, this corresponds with the 404 maintenance revenue. And now the building maintenance is there's less charges there. And then again, we adjusted this for the budget for next year. Snow removal. Wow, we got, like Rick said, we got slammed in December. And when I got the check to sign for the snow removal services, I was blown away. I had to call Lisa and I said, really, it's this much?
I think before that, we were at 47,000
Yeah,
before.
Yeah.
The snow came.
yep. So the good news is that's this year, that's last year. This year, well, if you want to call it good news, we haven't had much because January is pretty lean on snow, so. But we always seem to catch up at some point. February and March tend to be snowier months, so we'll see what happens there. Roof repairs, we had one project that got delayed. Otherwise, that would have been pretty much right on budget. Grounds looks good, window washing looks good, all the exterior maintenance. Lodge exterior maintenance was a little bit low, well, almost half low. And that was just, they did what they did. We put a number on it and it didn't take as much as we thought it would, so we saved some money there. The fire extinguishers, the line above, I jumped ahead there, 640. This is every third year, and we'll need to watch this and make sure we budget for it every third year. Every third year, the fire department does a exhaustive inspection of the property, and they come up with a punch list of things that need to be done. And so this fact that we're quite a bit over budget on that account reflects that. All right, we had 648 elevator maintenance, a little bit over. Why was that again, Tim? Do you remember?
We had a maintenance contract sent to us in January after the new elevator was completed. And it took a couple of months to get an understanding of where it was, why it was. And so the first couple of months, we overspent on the elevator maintenance, but we didn't have the rig in place. That's why those first two, that's what.
We didn't get, and was that legitimate, or should we have gotten credit for that? Or?
No.
No. All right, so not a big deal, but a little bit there. Temperature monitoring, touring, and alarms, well under budget. What's going on there?
We didn't have to buy as many devices. That's the budget code we uses to purchase smoke detectors, CO2 detectors. Things like that.
All right, and so again, you go to the bottom line, total for 600 accounts. It's almost right on budget within a couple of $100, so really good there. So while we overspent on snow removal, we underspent in some areas, and this is really the way it always happens. You never hit 100% of the items right at budget. It just doesn't happen. Personnel salaries. This is Tim's maintenance staff, maintenance and landscape and ground staff, and that's a little bit under budget because probably due to COVID, there was some staffing difficulties, trying to keep people employed, trying to hire people. Hopefully 2022 is a better year on that. So we're under budget on salaries overall. Utilities. Water and sewer. We're well under budget on water and sewer. And the reason for that is, and there's going to be some discussion and some information on that later on in the meeting. But
He's watching the snow come down.
Yeah.
somebody's unmuted. Oh, sounded like he was in an airplane. Okay, let's see, where was I? Water and sewer, 701. So the reason that is so far under budget is because since 2020, although this only reflects 2020, 2021, we've been withholding amounts from our water billing that in our estimate, well, in our opinion, were improperly charged, and that's been being negotiated on for I don't know how long, Scott, the last 18 months or so.
Water?
Yeah, 2 years.
Isn't it more like 9 years?
Well, I mean, but since the real negotiations started,
18 months,
yeah, about 18 months. So we have, and Glacier knows this, and we've been withholding this money. And so that's why we, if we had paid that, the full billings, we probably would have spent right at pretty close to the budget. And I'll hold off on explaining further on that. There's going to be a presentation later on the water and sewer negotiations. So, and some of that will become more clear then. But at least for this year, we saved a goodly amount of money. What's that? Satellite TV and internet are what they are. We try to budget them as close as we can. They don't always hit right on. Electricity, this is such a moving target. We budget 1 year, it goes higher and we don't know why. Weather, heating. Anyway, it's always difficult. I guarantee next year we'll budget $150,000 and it'll come in at 125, and who knows why? It just does. Refuse service is over because middle of the summer last year, we decided that the dumpsters in High Point and Pinecone were not large enough. They kept overflowing, especially during holiday periods. We ended up with trash on the ground. So we upgraded all our dumpsters to 8 cubic foot dumpsters. So we don't have solve that problem. And if we look down to the bottom line with the amounts we've drawn from capital improvements, I mean, from permanent reserves for capital projects, all the way down the line, we're well ahead on budget versus spending. So in good shape there. Capital, the assessment, these are our short-term projects that we do, not year to year, but more one-time things, special deals, special projects, things that need to get done that don't repeat themselves. So we allocate a portion of the assessment fees for this, and that's what that revenue stream shows at the top. If you combine this revenue stream with the account 400 on the first income statement sheet, then that's the total amount that is paid by owners. Tim, I'm going to let you run down these wherever there's an anomaly and explain what those anomalies might be.
For 2021, we had requested a total of $50,000 on irrigation and landscaping. We didn't have a really good handle on a plan. We started to execute late in the year, and that's why we came in significantly half the budget that was allocated. Maintenance office 803. We stopped short because we found out that putting walls and a door up on the upper level was against code, and we didn't want to. It was going to go way over, so we just stopped midway through that project. Bat mitigation, we had additional work that we wanted to do, and this was an approved overage that we planned and discussed before we went $8,000 over the budget. That was additional work up at High Point, as I recall. Remodel admin office. The original budget was based on renting space to Sotheby's. We changed that midway through the year, so we did not have to do all the work that we had originally planned. Let's see, security cameras. This was another one that was an approved overage. We decided that we were going to go ahead and do the parking lot cameras in addition to all the cameras that we added to the lodge. So that extra $5,700 over budget was approved prior to going over budget.
Hey, do we have access to that external? In other words, can another look at the cameras and the,
No, it was gonna be,
not yet?
how much was that a month, Gary? $12?
$12 per month per camera,
Yeah,
which comes to almost $1,200 a year to have access to the 8 cameras.
account 817, lodge drain plumbing refurbishment. We've spent this many dollars in our first part of our due diligence. We got asbestos testing in process. We've got copper water lines testing in process. And we've engaged an engineer to guide us through this scope and price development. That's going to continue on through 2022. Fire suppression pump went over budget. I had a pump and a motor I had to replace up at High Point. Signage, I had a bad number. We've got a beautiful sign out there. It just went a couple $1,000 over budget. The unplanned capital expenses are all pretty self-explanatory. We decided to purchase a glycol unit for the restaurant. We needed to build a shed for our new lawnmower we purchased. The big one in there is the heat tape problem we found about a year ago. Then we had some improvements to do to unit 114 when we decided to put that into the rental pool.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
So if you look at the bottom line, we're a bit over about $25,000 over on total expense versus budget. But then if you follow down and we add in the amounts that were transferred to and from reserves, then we actually come out on the plus side by a bit there. So we're good. Permanent reserves. So this is just a look at our permanent reserves. We're a little bit over budget, so that's good. I spoke to the total that we have in reserves at this point. Again, Lisa, why is the number slightly different at the bottom there, 830 versus the 824? Why did we say that was a little different?
Because we've got that beginning balance. What we thought the beginning balance was going to be, that's not what the actual beginning balance was.
Okay.
That's what we budget, assuming the budget.
So it's close.
Yeah.
Not that far off. And then the last sheet is the service and security desk. And the revenues are slightly ahead of budget. That's good. Expenses, 573, the manager's contract fee. We've ceased to pay a stipend to Heather Dawson. She's still running her rental program, but all of her compensation comes from her running of her own rental program. She no longer spends a whole lot of time here at Tamarron. She does everything remote from home. So we eliminated that. Marketing and promotions. We're cutting this out of this budget and moving it over to operating because it's more of a promoting the property effort than it is doing anything specifically for the rental program. A lot of that's being brought in-house. One of Paige's responsibilities is going to be managing our social media presence. We're cutting the cord with Ann Dixon, who was doing that as a third-party contractor. So that'll all change for next year. Office equipment, we had a big bump in 584 because we had a little bit of a crisis at the front desk when our key card reader went down, and we didn't have a spare. We didn't have any way to, so we were scrambling to to get people in and out of, get people, owners and guests in and out of the units. Kudos to the staff for doing the best they could with that. But we ended up buying a new Onity reader. And I understand, I heard yesterday that somehow Gary and Cody managed to fix the old one. And now we have a spare.
Now we have a spare.
Yeah, good job. I don't know what you guys did, what magic you did, but
I don't know either.
yeah. All right. Anyway, so that 500 series accounts is over budget, and that's why. And then personnel salaries, it's pretty much right on budget. The employee benefits, again, that's another one. Like you said, we end up with fewer people taking advantage of the insurance than we thought. And then if you look to the bottom line, we're on the plus side with the prior year carryover, so we're in good shape. And that's the 2021 year-end budget. Any questions?
Can I make one comment?
2021 financial statements.
Yes.
As far as snow removal is concerned, one of the problems, I think, and I'm hoping that a whole lot of owners actually tune into the video once it gets on YouTube. One of the problems, and we see this just sitting in the office, looking out in the lodge parking lot, people don't move their cars. And the amount of time it takes the plows to plow around cars, make sure they're not damaging cars, and then they have to come back later on to clean up, and then come back again later on to clean up. That adds up in terms of dollars. We've got to get people to move their cars more often, especially in the lodge parking lot. I'm not sure exactly how bad it is in the outlying areas, but the lodge parking lot just gets frustrating as all hell for the snowplow drivers.
That equipment's not cheap to.
And that equipment is not cheap at all.
So Gary, how do we, I mean, obviously, we don't have every owner on the deal, and we can yell and scream all we want at owners to get them to do it, but a lot of them are renters, right? And there's rental cars. Do
Yep.
we have any process? Do we collect cell phone numbers from renters? Do we have the ability to communicate with the renters to let them know that that's something they're gonna need to do? Do we do it at the front desk when they come in? How do we do that?
Do it
They-
front.
All right, go ahead.
We collect cell phone numbers and we have their license plate numbers. We have both of those. So we try to get in touch with them when they come in. What were you gonna say? Or
Yeah, we do collect all that information at the front desk, or usually when they make the reservation. Although we have one owner who refuses, it's a VRBO, he refuses to give us his guest cell phone numbers, but we're working on that. But we do the best we can to try and get in touch with everybody.
So we have to have a key in there?
That's part.
I went ahead and sent him an email, and, you know, the difference between Gary talking to him and me talking to him, his story changed.
And what about people that are out of town?
This problem's not gonna go away. We just
Yeah.
have to do our best to mitigate it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if people are out of town in their cars here, so be it. There are a couple of owners who in the past have left keys in the maintenance office. You know, they leave a copy of their car key and they say, you know, if you need to, go ahead and move it.
I remember we used to do that at Angel House, because
Yeah.
that parking lot was really small. So we, that liability of moving cars, I
I
don't
know.
think we'd do that anymore.
Especially in the
You're
snow.
never,
Yeah.
you're never gonna solve the problem completely. However, people need to pay closer attention to it. Owners and long-term renters in particular need to pay closer attention to it and heed the email that goes out that says, please move your cars. Too many people have, I know a lot of the cars and a lot of the people who have them, they just ignore it. So
Well,
we
you
can
know,
encourage people to do that. It would be helpful.
in defense of some of the people in the lodge, especially the owners in the lodge that might not do it. I mean, it's easy for me in Pinecone. I can look out my window. I watch the plow go by. And as soon as he goes by, I mean, when I see them start to plow, I move the car first. I move it out of the way, so my area gets plowed. And then when he's done plowing it, I move the car back. People in the lodge can't do that. They've got to go outside to see what they need to do.
Well, yes, but if they get an email, to that effect, that says move your cars.
But where are they
That-
supposed to move it? If it's a crowded parking lot, like in December, when it's busy for Christmas season,
Usually the plows don't come here till 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of people, a lot of parking spaces open up
yeah,
by then.
if they go skiing.
And they go skiing. And so the plows will clear a significant portion of the parking lot, enough so that people can move their cars. Or they can do what I do. We'll park down in Glacier Club.
Well, that's what I was gonna suggest, but I didn't know if we wanted to do that.
I didn't say that, but,
I mean, when you think about it, there aren't, that parking lot doesn't get used down there in the winter all that much. Especially during the day, only when people are going to the mine shaft for dinner or something like that. So why, I don't think,
or you can park, yeah, I park right in the area for the fitness center.
I wouldn't want to put it out there, go park down there, but maybe somebody has to have a conversation with Glacier and say, hey, can we do this during the winter months when that parking lot is virtually unused? And,
Sure.
I don't know if they plow it out or not. Do they plow it out in the wintertime?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when they,
And you're only gonna park your car for an hour.
just a temporary,
So,
not leave it there. Yeah, that would be inconvenient anyway. If you're in the lodge, you don't want your car
Yeah.
parked down there.
I'm just gonna bring one other thing up because safety is always a huge thing with me. So when we have these people moving vehicles, especially if they're older people, these sidewalks here, I mean, I've busted my tail. I couldn't tell you how many times. So we have to make sure that if they're moving their cars, that we've got some type of a safe path that they can get back to their unit. Because it gets bad. I mean, it gets bad.
Hey, Gary, I don't know what the routine is at the front desk when people check in, but at that time, can they be told, especially if we know a big storm's coming, you might be notified that you have to move your car for us to effectively keep the parking lot clear. And if you get that notification, we appreciate your acting on it, or, I don't think we can say, or it'll cost us more money, because then they won't care.
Yeah.
But what we can maybe say is, in order for you to be able to get your car out and, access the property, we need people to move their cars. So if you get that notification, please do. Maybe just a verbal conversation at the front desk when people check in. And then if they do get that text or email, or, they'll be more aware of it. I don't know how many of the problem is renters versus owners, but I would imagine with renters, if they're there, they're not moving their cars. Just an idea, just a way to simply point it out during the winter season. Like I said, especially if we saw that storm coming, let people know you're going to have to move your car. And
We just need to type up a process and hand it out to people in the event of.
Yeah, that might work too.
Yeah, and it wouldn't hurt to do a reminder for the people to get on that shuttle, because they're leaving cars behind.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I mean, let's face it, most of the time, the snowplows are through here at 5 and 4.
Yeah.
So there should be places they can move a car at that point.
Right. Absolutely, that's a great idea. We can definitely start doing that in the winter months, letting people know as they check in.
Mhm.
This might occur. We would appreciate it if you would move your car if you get that notification. Absolutely.
okay, get back,
So any other questions on the budget? Gary, do you have any coming in? I mean, on the financial reports? Do you have anything online?
nope.
Okay, all right, so one other thing, moving on to the 2022 budget. Everyone was mailed this letter. Dated December 13th, which provided a copy of the proposed budget for 2022, which was adopted by the board on November 19th at the budget meetings. There's a prescribed procedure for protesting the budget. It's in the bylaws, section 10.1, referenced in this letter. So at this point, I need to ask if anyone has a protest to submit as provided for in section 10.1 of the bylaws.
I am not aware of any.
Hearing none, this budget, the 2022 budget is hereby ratified.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Okay, moving on to reports. First one be architectural review. I have two requests. The first one is for unit 827 in Pinecone. And what the owners are wanting to do is on a wall, put in some trapezoidal windows. And I have a rendering of what they would like to do. And
What's old, what's new?
I believe it's this one here is what's new. The taller one is new. And yeah, as you can see from that, it does look out into the trees. It does not look towards
What unit is it?
827.
That's on the north end of that building and it faces north, that window will
Yeah.
face north.
So it's just that window?
Yeah, well, for this unit, it's yeah, the tall window and they also want to put in a mini split air conditioning unit, which I explained to them, if approved, it would need to, on the exterior, be the exact same color as any exterior color. And exterior finish on the window would need to match existing.
And do we still have, everybody who wants to alter the window or whatever, do we still have them sign a form saying they understand that the owner, them and subsequent owners will bear the financial responsibility for any repairs that have to come down the line?
I usually tell them, and I also always tell them to work with Tim.
Okay, but do we use that form?
I never have.
Yeah, we used to have,
That was part of the condition
Okay.
of the approval. That's how it's always been.
okay, it's not a separate form, it's just, but it's part of the paperwork.
It's condition of the approval.
We do have a form.
Oh.
We do have a form. Where they have to accept responsibility.
Well, we
have
should
a
be
form.
doing, if we're
I don't
not,
know
we
if
should be
can
doing
use
that.
it. We do have a form.
Okay, so I make a motion that we approve the installation of a window and the mini split unit for unit 827. Okay, Kathy.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion on this subject?
With the mini split, then they're completely responsible for that if something occurs.
Yes, yes. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, the second one is unit 820. I don't have a drawing, but it's a window only, same situation. So I think they want to add something, it's similar to the middle window on this drawing. So same thing.
Is it an end unit? This is an end unit.
Yes,
Is 820 an end unit?
yes, I believe so. And same situation, they just want to add the window. Again, with them, told them they need to coordinate everything with Tim, it has to match exterior.
820, I don't think is an N unit, it's an S unit, so it's up above. And I think, is it the big middle window that they're looking to change?
Yeah, they're remodeling
They have two trapezoidal windows on either side, but the middle window is rectangular.
Any owner that wants to make such a
Yeah.
change should give us drawings. It's very difficult to respond to a request when you have nothing to look at. So to be honest with you, until I saw drawings, I would not support it.
I kind of agree with John. I mean, I don't get a vote. think
Can I also add that if there are drawings, that we be given electronic copies of them so we can see them better? Because I couldn't really see, Rick, what you were holding up.
Okay,
But it sounded reasonable, but if anybody has drawings to submit.
I can get it closer.
Still not good. But if anybody has drawings to submit, if they could be either a screen share or something so that we can really see, because I do have a hard time visualizing based on just description.
Okay.
One of the problems is with people remote right now. That it's been in effect.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, 820 is already completed. It was one that I looked at, yeah. I had something last year. And I couldn't find it in my emails. But it was something I looked at last summer and I forgot to bring it up at the last meeting. So this is actually, I'm just asking for a formal approval for it. So I make a motion, we approve the windows for unit 820.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any other further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Rick, this is Jerry, and I would second what Stacy requested, and that is copies of the drawings in advance. And I also support John's statement that in the future, we shouldn't even consider any architectural approvals until they have complied with submitting a drawing in advance.
I think that's good information to request from people. Okay. Okay, next thing, rules and regulations. We got a couple of issues that I don't really want to have a whole lot of discussion on right now. Maybe some alterations to parking and also dogs as far as allowing family members such as children when they come to visit, bringing their dogs or parents, something like that, maybe one up, one down, some things like that. But I think that we'd like to talk with the ownership a little bit more, kind of get their feelings, and then we can revisit those at the May meeting. So then the next item is water and sewer, and I will turn it over to Scott.
All right, that went too fast. I was expecting a longer rules and regs discussion. All right, I guess I can stand up here, right? That's the camera. Okay, for those, if you're not aware of us having a water negotiation, then you haven't been in very many meetings. As Joe alluded to, back in 2013, we started working with Glacier, now ECWC, to put a permanent agreement in place for our water. Glacier and now ECWC provides, they control the water plant, the sewer, everything is managed by them. So we asked annually and put up with, somewhat annual increases over the years. And finally kind of came to an impasse and started negotiations with them, I guess 18 months, 2 years ago, as Joe alluded to. We had a subcommittee. That subcommittee had Joe, Jerry, Greg, Eric. Obviously, Ken was involved. I was involved. Who am I missing?
I think you got them all.
Steve Harris.
Steve Harris.
Steve Harris, who was a water consultant.
Yeah.
We have gone back and forth. I guess about 15 months ago, I started having just discussions directly with Dave Goodman. Sandy Mankins got involved. We have, thanks to the help of Jerry, really, picked apart a lot of the models and everything that they were sharing with us around how they calculated. Got to a point where we were comfortable with the models after working closely with ECWC's consultant. Then it really just came down to negotiating, what the payment structure was going to look like. And keep in mind that this is all about previous debt service. So right, wrong, or indifferent, ECWC is managing our water plant. And we don't have the wherewithal to manage that. They control the plant. They serve us, they serve Rockwood, they serve the surrounding communities. So, we had to, have some tough discussions and tough decisions around realistically what was it going to take for us to have secure water and sewer going forward. So, as I said, this was all about past debt and how it was calculated in the rate structure. We went back and forth on what those numbers look like. I won't get into the granular detail because we've probably gone through 50 versions of the contract. In essence, what we did is we defined debt service in 2 tranches, pre-2017, if I remember correctly, Jerry, and then post-2017 up through current. Agreeing to allow for some existing maintenance that is ongoing and should be done in the first quarter as part of those debt service calculations. What we agreed to in the end was ECWC has a credit line. That credit line is with the Carlton Conglomerate Family Trust, whatever it is. We agreed to allow to look at that credit line and then close the credit line after completion of all the projects that have obviously already been done and what they're finishing in the first quarter. In essence, that credit line will be closed out. We've agreed to a formal amortization payment schedule down on that credit line going forward as part of the rate calculations that they make. So effective at the execution of this agreement, they've produced a single note, a full amortization schedule that's tied to the contract, a commitment to make regular payments, a commitment to share annually upon request, confirmation of what payments are being made so that we can ensure that they are that this is arm's length financing. They're paying down as they should. They are appropriately being a fiduciary of their customers, and ultimately move forward with with a rate structure that we can get comfortable with. Annually going forward, they're required to disclose by give or take October, November, what their model looks like, what their costs have been, and what they anticipate the rates are going to be. Part of our negotiation, and Joe, you're going to have to help me here, was we began holding back portions of the payments because we did not have a formal negotiated contract. Part of our negotiation had them waive our holdback, so that any of the holdback, we weren't paying the full amount of the contract during 2021.
Started in 2020.
2020 and 2021. So that was part of the negotiation. We are drawing a line in the sand. We're making a clean slate effective January 1, 2022. Contract has been approved. Red lines have been closed out. The only thing that's stopping Rick from signing it is the fact that we don't have a notary on property. Otherwise, we would likely sign it right now and take it down there. So agreement's done. I don't know. I know we need to vote on it, or you guys are going to vote on agreeing to it. If there's questions of board, I know we've been updating you guys on this, every 3 months for a year and a half, 2 years, so you kind of know what's going on. I'm not planning on sticking around because I don't have to, and I can go ski, which I haven't been able to do in 6 years. So if there are questions from the board and or anybody online, let me know.
Scott, I would like to make some comments, if I may. First of all, I want to recognize all of the work that the committee has done on the water and sewer business since it got stood up back in 2019, when the ECWC Water Company was formed, and things began to change. Under Scott's leadership in particular, we made tremendous progress. I will tell you that the first draft agreement that we got from ECWC was absolutely terrible. Among other things, they wanted us to give up, concede all of our water rights and all of our mortgage liens on facilities should they default. There were many other aspects of that original agreement that were just horrendous. So we began this very intense back and forth with ECWC that involved primarily Jim Goodman, Sandy Mankins, their chief financial officer, and Dave Harris, their legal counsel. I can tell you that each committee member has probably spent hundreds of hours over the last couple of years working on this. There have literally been dozens of iterations of the agreement where we basically fought tooth and nail for all of the things that we needed to have in that agreement to make sure that there were going to be equitable rates going forward, that were and there were provisions to review them, what they could and couldn't do. And we finally have arrived at an agreement that is acceptable to everybody on the committee. And I invite any other members of the committee to chime in. But I also want to say that we used to have a firm fixed bulk rate for our water and sewer that was in effect by a provision of a 2003 agreement with the predecessor of ECWC and Glacier. And that got escalated every year, almost every year, by the maximum allowed by that old agreement of 3%. As a result, in 2018, we paid for our water and sewer, we paid approximately $420,000 for our total water and sewer bill, approximately. And that amount was derived from billing every unit at Tameron $92 or so per month. And that was the same that was charged for every building that was served by Glacier at that time. So the mansions up on the hill were paying $92 per month as we were. In addition, they began charging us extra for irrigation water. They had also done virtually no upkeep or maintenance of their facilities. And as a result, they needed massive upgrades, which began after the formation of the ECWC company. Now our rates are equitable, as we knew that they would be, and we tried to argue for many years. The result is that what Taco pays compared to the other users in the community has decreased substantially, but more importantly, everybody else's rates have gone up because they were underpaid for so many years. So the fact that we have these new rates in place and we have provisions in our agreement to make sure that they stay equitable going forward and we have protections for our interests is a monumental achievement in my opinion. And again, it is due to the hard work of the committee and in particular over the last year and a half of Scott's direct communications with Jim Goodman, Sandy Mankins, and Dave Harris, and our attorney. I will tell you that many of us from time to time over the course of this process became quite bleary-eyed from reading all of the legalese in the various iterations of the agreement. And when some of us would kind of say, you know, I'm gasping for air here. I need a break from this for a little while. Everybody else would step up. And also I wanted to cite in particular our legal counsel, Ken Golden, who doggedly pursued this and the interests of Tameron. So I would just say in conclusion that the committee is quite pleased with where we have wound up. I plan, once this is signed, to buy a bottle of champagne and open it and celebrate with my wife and family because they.
I think everybody should. Jerry, thank you for sharing all of that because, you know, I was not involved in the history of it as much. So that is a really valuable recap. So hats off to all of you guys. Do we have a summary of the terms?
We have the
You are more
agreement.
than welcome to read the agreement.
We have the agreement.
Oh, no. That's what I mean. Do we have a summary? Like,
Did you send the agreement out to the board? The final one that came in Friday or whenever? it came
No,
in?
I
Okay.
did not.
Yeah, we can certainly share it.
But thank you very much. What an important change, great progress for Taco.
I got one comment I'd like to follow on what Jerry said. I've been involved in, I don't know how many contract negotiations in my years of service with Tamaron. I mean, all of the exterior remodel construction contracts, the Groove TV contract, the Cedar Networks for the internet contract, the pool and spa and golf, that we all now have golf and fitness and everything else again now, all of those. This was by far the most protracted and arduous one I've ever been involved in. So, yeah, I mean, thanks to all my committee members for the work you guys done.
Good job.
Yeah.
This is Dan Noonan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Scott, you had mentioned that money was being withheld every year. Is all the money that's being withheld still going to end up going to Elder Creek Water and Sanitation?
No.
Or no?
That was part of the final negotiation and settlement to get this thing over the finish line. Originally, just so everybody kind of understands, you know, we said this is going on for 18 months. We thought we got pretty close in September and we thought it might be settled there. But there were just some protracted items that needed to get dealt with. So the final settlement has us, you know, basically what we paid last year is what we paid, what we withheld, you know, that will not get remitted to ECWC at this point as part of the settlement. And we draw a line in the sand going forward.
ECWC acknowledged that in writing back last summer that the amounts that we've withheld, that they will allow us to forgive any obligation that we have to pay them. They basically said, you know, use that as one aspect of this settlement agreement that's on the plus side for you.
So
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Jerry, you had talked about roughly $92 was being charged to every single consumer. Do we have any idea now approximately what that means to Tamaron, what each member roughly is paying then for water and sewer now?
Yeah, you can probably answer this very quickly too. But if you look at what our estimated water bill is now for the year, of what we went into the budget, which is on the order of 340,000, 350,000, something like that. And of course, we came in under that because of what we withheld last year. That is a fraction of what we were paying in 2018 when the old rates were in effect. So it's already lower per household, if you will, than what we were paying previously. On the other hand, since 2019, they have borrowed how much? 7, 8 million, almost $10 million to upgrade first the water treatment plant and then the wastewater plant. And all of the debt service for those debts that were incurred are being passed along to the owners, to the point where now about it, I don't know what it is most recently, but it had been on the order of a third of everybody's total water bill was going toward debt service for improvement of the facilities. So if you took off that portion of it, what we would be paying now would be even less. So again, you can look at the fraction, multiply it by the $92, and that's about what each household is paying on average for water for the per month at this time. Go.
I could add a little bit to that. If you look at the 2020 budget that we just approved, that just got ratified, we've got $370,000 in there for water and sewer. That's based on the 2022 rates that are in effect as of January 1st of this year. And so compare that to the 420,000 that Jerry referenced from 2018. You can see we're paying less. It was about 345 last year. The rates did go up. But bear in mind also that, and then I want to emphasize, Jerry talks about that debt service that's part of those rates. That debt service was not part of those rates back in 2018, right? It wasn't there. So we're paying considerably less for water, actual water usage than we have in the past, which was something that since 2013, we've been pounding on, that we've been Cimarron has been overpaying for water. And we finally got it to the point where we think it's now equitable and fair to those of us. And to answer your question, Dan, we don't individually meter every unit. So it's impossible to allocate water usage costs to each individual owner. The entire lodge is metered on 1 meter. And then each outlying building, which could comprise anywhere from 3 to, I don't know, 10 or 12 units, is metered individually.
But if
And
we got 380 units and we got a $380,000 budget,
just do the math. That's it.
$1,000 a year for
So
everybody.
basically, the water bill gets allocated on a fixed, a simple division. If you want to know how much you're paying for water, divide 370,000 by 380. There you go.
All right, last question is, do we have, Scott, you had mentioned that the debt service is going to be repaid and amortized. Do you have any idea what that interest rate's going to be and when that's going to be defined?
Contract.
Yeah, it's 25 years, 6%. Total amount is 7.75 roughly. It's probably going to come in slightly less than that, 7.75 million.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments from the board?
And if I could add one other thing, keep in mind that this is an agreement that we worked on for a very long time, and it's between Taco and ECWC. But we're negotiating on behalf of every ECWC customer. So the savings that we've been able to to manage our way through accrue through to Glacier customers and Rockwood customers and the Estates customers and everything else. We just happen to be the big ticket guys that that had the opportunity to be able to negotiate something on behalf of all users.
All the other guys had signed either a version of the original contract that was submitted that we rejected out of hand, or something maybe slightly different than that. So everybody is benefiting from our due diligence.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well done. Very well done.
This probably is the most significant. We've had a lot of significant contracts over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But this is probably the most significant contract because, what's more important than water? And so, again, congratulations to the committee for its due diligence over the last 18, 20 months or whatever it's taken.
It feels like it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
It has been 10 years.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look, but water and sewer is if it's not the single largest line item in our budget, it's close.
Right.
Yeah.
You want me to read these?
Yeah, my eyeballs aren't working that well.
3 questions. One from Ron Hyman. Are we going to hear some numbers regarding the contract? From Mary Keys, how does this water contract affect our HOA fees? And Ron Hyman says, at what point do we expect the debt service to be satisfied? And important to know what the water charge and the debt service portions are.
I could speak to the debt service portion. I mean, I just spoke to it a minute ago. I mean, there's a pre-2017 debt and a post-2017 debt. The post-2017 2018 debt is the 7.75 million. I mentioned it's a 25-year amort. They started making payments on that amortization in October of last year. So they are already making regular payments. In theory, that since that is closed out and we've tied an amortization schedule to the contract, this will pay down over 25 years. Now, they can pay it off sooner. And certainly one of the reasons why we wanted to put this in place and make sure that it was an arm's length type scenario is historically the payments weren't being made regularly. And we felt like it was important for us to make it clear that, hey, you know, you've got the owner of Glacier involved in the financing of this, and we feel like we need to put some structure around and some requirements around a regular amortization and regular payments so that there's a fiduciary responsibility to pay down that debt on a monthly basis and do what's appropriate as a fiduciary for the end customers, all the end customers. So hopefully that answers the question, at least Ron's question.
I'll speak to the one on whoever asked the question about how's it going to affect our HOA fees. It's not. I mean,
Yeah.
this contract was, the provisions in this contract were mostly largely known back in November when we did the budget, and we budgeted for the 2021 rates at 2022 rates as they were submitted. And so it's going to have no effect. Now, do you want to know what the overall effect is over years? It's a lower portion of our HOA fees than it was
For the last-
4 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think the other thing we should point out is, and I think Jerry, you said this, our frustration and our motivation to get this done the way we did it was the recognition that we were paying fees and and those fees weren't necessarily being appropriated in a manner that would maintain reserves and make sure that the infrastructure of the water and sewer plant were maintained over time. So when we negotiated this, and they created ECWC. Part of this is to set up a reserve fund, set up what is necessary going forward as part of the rate structure that's in place to ensure that, absent catastrophic issues, they can continually and ongoing, maintain the plant as necessary. So, our hopes are that we won't have any other, major borrowing events, but there's no way to know that. So on a go-forward basis, if they have a need to borrow, our negotiations, as I said early on, were all about previous debt service. So future borrowings that might need to happen by ECWC will be done outside of anything that has to do with us, and then obviously would be part of a part of their rate calculations going forward, and they would have to disclose that to their customers.
Let me say one other thing again to kind of help everyone understand the magnitude of what has happened here. And that is that in the last couple of years, and I think it's even more now, the portion of the total bill that everybody paid for the debt service on the improvements was about a third of the total bill, which means that there was about a 50% addition onto what everybody was paying for the cost of operations to supply the water and to process the waste. If that had been done under the old procedures for billing customers, and we were paying over $400,000 before they began those improvements, and 50% of that were added on for the improvements that were done to cover the debt service, that means today we would be paying well over $600,000, maybe $700,000 a year for our water and sewer. And we are paying no more than half of that. So we have a very substantial savings for everybody in Tameron. Also, the fact that we challenged them trying to bill us and everybody else for debt service for improvements that were made prior to 2018, when an old agreement was in place, which said that we were paying a flat fee and they were responsible for all improvements and maintenance under that agreement. That's why we challenged it. They finally agreed because I suspect they thought that they're trying to bill us for those old improvements retroactively would not fly legally. So they wound up not only forgiving those debts for us, and which justified our withholding some of our payments over the last couple of years, but they also then stopped charging any of the other customers. So all the other customers now are seeing a reduction in their rates because of our challenging them trying to bill everybody for old improvements.
And that number was 2.6 million, Jared, am I remembering that
About,
correct?
about $2.7 million.
Right.
Okay, are there any other comments from the board? Any other comments or questions from the owners?
There was one
You're
in
gonna do
here.
a motion in a second, then you ask for comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Come on, Rick, how long you been doing this?
Okay. Well, I make a motion that based upon the recommendation of the negotiating committee, that we accept the agreement as presented and negotiated. And I guess that's about it.
I second.
Jerry
Jerry,
seconds.
Jerry's been waiting. He wanted to
Okay.
do that.
Okay. Now, is there any other discussion? From anyone from the owners?
Did we answer Ron's question? It looks like, is that a new one or is that the old?
He said, can we get some number? He wants it. He wanted
Well,
some
the
numbers.
last one is how can the directors who have not been presented with contract to read, vote on this contract in all good conscience?
Well, Scott was given,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Ron, to your
authority.
point, I understand your concern here. We have gone back and forth and we've given the subcommittee the authority to negotiate this now for the better part of a year and a half. If we would have gotten this done in September when I wanted to get it done, I would have signed this. It would have been done already. We will distribute it, and I'm speaking on behalf of the board, obviously, which I probably shouldn't be, but we'll make sure and distribute this to the remaining board members so they have it. But we basically just laid out the terms as I've described them. So. Comments, questions?
So, and what's been happening with these negotiations, especially more recently, has been communicated to the board by the committee. So the board has been able to follow the progress that has been made recently. It'd be simple to simply distribute the final clean copy of the agreement that real time almost right now to the board, but I can attest that it has been thoroughly reviewed forever.
By council? Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
okay, we're saying that.
Yeah, I mean, this has been thoroughly reviewed by
Before
council. I
last
mean,
year.
Ken and I have had
So,
2-3 calls a week on this for, for months and months. I mean, when Jerry talks about the hundreds and hundreds of hours, I mean, that there's no underestimation of that. We put an enormous amount of effort into this, and let's face it, everyone, I mean, we don't have a way to test, to monitor everybody's usage, right? A lot of us aren't here all the time. We're not using water, but that's the reality of the community that we're in. If you look at the math, and I'm going to make it easy, I know it's 370 is in the budget, but we're talking $1,000 a year per unit, give or take. So you divide that by 12, everybody on this call and everybody, in their other homes pays more than that for water, I would suspect. So we've done our best. I will tell you that in the end, what we have done is created the responsibility for the other users that have single family homes and are metered to pay a real rate so that we're not supplementing it anymore. So I am beyond pleased with what we've gotten done.
Okay. With that, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving this contract, say aye.
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 Is there anyone on the board opposed? Okay. 7-0. And we will accept the contract and we will sign it and present it back to Glacier. Okay, the.
Where's that bottle of champagne?
With the ball set. And at this time too, on behalf of the ownership, I want to thank all the committee for all the work that they've done. I probably have, I would say, close to 500 emails on this.
And you weren't even
It's
counting
a-
on most.
Yeah, and I didn't see everything. So, you know, on behalf of the ownership, thank you guys. You've done a tremendous job for everyone.
Good job.
And that's how many emails I have in my file for water and sewer.
Okay.
527, and I've deleted a lot of them because you get chains.
Yeah.
And I only
Yeah.
keep the last one in the chain.
Um,
Yeah.
Well, what I was gonna say, the next thing on the agenda was the rental program. I'd asked Heather for a
We do
couple.
have a report from Heather and
Yeah.
Paige is going to present it.
Did you
Okay,
get it?
okay,
Yeah.
Who's gonna present it?
Paige.
okay.
So
Yeah.
you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, 'cause I got it too.
Yeah. she
Okay.
She
got-
sent it to me because she didn't know if Rick would get it or
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, at this time, let's go ahead and take about a 10-minute break. And let's come back at 10 after.
Oh, I see you got it too, Elisa. Okay.
They were throwing furniture around a while ago, Ken, but they said they settled down now. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Now they can hear you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started back up. Ken Golden, our attorney, has joined us and he would like to make some comments. So Ken, we'll turn it over to you.
He would?
Yeah.
I guess, hang on one second here, I'm just opening up the document. So it's my understanding that the board has gone ahead and approved it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what kind of information are you looking for just generally about it? I can answer questions, or if you want me to just go on, I mean, obviously, this agreement, it's really been, what, 8.5 years that we've been trying to get them to come into an agreement. It's replacing the 2003 addendum to the 1989 water agreement. From a practical standpoint going forward, the board's going to want to just make sure there's a bunch of provisions in here requiring ECWC or its successor to be providing certain documentation to the board on a timely basis so the board can evaluate the rights on a given year. We want to make sure, obviously, that that's going to be something that the board is going to be following up on to make sure that the deadlines are met. There are amendments to the both the liens that we have for the water rights as well as the facilities. We've updated that. We've put some control in for the existing debt, the capital improvements debt, and we need to make sure, obviously, that we're tracking that on a yearly basis as well. And those deadlines are all in the document. What additional information do you guys want me to talk about, since I wasn't told to be here until about 2 minutes ago?
Yeah, I think,
Jerry's suggestion, but
It's fine.
yeah, I think Scott covered it pretty well. He went through a lot of it. We thought if there was something you wanted to add, that we would invite you on.
Okay, no, I think, obviously, the key components of this is that this document is now a longer term than the prior document from 2003. It has, we were able to retain significant opportunities to object to rates if they're improperly increased. we have in there the ability to get the documentation that is to be used by ECWC or its successors to establish the rates in a given year. And so just the important thing from our standpoint is that we need to make sure we're calendaring when various actions are supposed to be taken by ECWC to provide documentation to us. There's also one item that deals with the note, which and the note we're talking about is the note that is currently from Thrushcross Grange and is being used by ECWC for, among other things, in the past, but now solely for the wastewater plant upgrade. And they've got an obligation to provide the calculations for the interest and payments, et cetera, loan draws, et cetera, for a given year, but only at Taco's request. It's not an automatic that they're going to be producing it. So we want to make sure that we've got something on a calendar for an annual basis to be issuing that request so that we're getting the documentation so that we can review it. And from a commentary standpoint, and I'm guessing maybe it's been discussed previously, when ECWC first started in 2019, the way they handled their financing versus the way that it appears to be handled now was quite different and probably not nearly as accurate. And so we still want to make sure that Taco is monitoring their payments that they've been making and how it's being applied to the interest according to the amortization schedule, which is part of the agreement that we've entered into. Assuming everything is done correctly, I'm anticipating that the note payoff, and obviously the payoff is not just Taco, it's all of the ECWC users, should be shorter than the current term of the note. But again, I want to make sure that we're following that. In addition, there are deadlines for objections to rates that are to be proposed by ECWC, and we want to make sure that we've got calendaring of our time frame on that in a given year so that in the event that there's going to be an objection, we are doing it timely under the provisions of the agreement, and therefore they can't argue that we are out of time for making the objections. So those are the biggest things, I think, with respect to this document. And also there's a renewal provision in it that we're going to need to schedule for way down the road, but trying to make sure that if for whatever reason we think it's not going to be renewed, we need to make sure that we're given the adequate notice for it. But I can't see us not agreeing to continue to get water unless you've somehow been able to figure out a way to get water in some other fashion.
Well, Ken, on behalf of everyone at Tameron, we want to thank you for all your efforts in getting us to this point, and just, you did an awesome job and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm hoping that this one is going to be, I believe we've tried to anticipate various potential events that could occur and how they could be addressed. And so I'm hoping that this is an agreement that's got more enforceability than the prior one from 2003 and obviously from 1999. So
yeah,
let me know if anyone else has any other questions or anything.
Does anybody else from the board have a question for Ken?
Nope.
Okay.
Hey, Rick, this is Eric. I just want to reinforce one of the things that Ken said. And Jerry, I think is part of this process as he sits on our advisory board. It's not unusual for a developer of a property to set up a little mini utility like the Carltons have with ECWC. We're just now going through the growing pains of trying to help that company become a real legitimate supplier of services to Tameron and our surrounding communities. I sent a note to the board before I left suggesting that the board retain a water consultant to continue to look out for some of the provisions of this agreement year by year, so that we don't get behind the 8 ball, kind of like we did from 2003 to, I don't know, when I guess we first initiated conversations with them in a serious way in 2019. That's when we set up the advisory board and took our first shot at an outside consultant's water rates. But I'm speaking for myself and not necessarily for Jerry or Greg. We may have some other things to do with our lives. I'm not sure we're going to have hundreds of hours to watch the ECWC as it puts together rates going forward. I think the board would be well served to hire a professional and get him on board now and continue to work year by year as we do the rate setting process. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Eric. That's good suggestion. So, okay, Ken, I guess we don't have any other questions. So
Okay,
thank you for joining.
sure thing. I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye. Take care.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda will be the rental program, and Paige is gonna report on that.
So Heather had sent an email with her report, so I'm just gonna read what she had sent. So she had said that taco fees generated from short-term rentals increased from $26,000 in 2020 to $39,000 in 2021. While COVID is still with us, things are beginning to normalize with kids being able to stay in school. I don't think projections will exceed 2021 numbers, but I also don't think they will fall back down to 2019 levels. Our new normal will be higher and come in historical numbers. I think we are seeing more vacation rental homes in general in our area, but I would say that these new owners are setting aside more personal use time than we have typically seen. Travelers have definitely been expecting more from their rentals now that they have been staying longer and traveling more often. So extra amenities like crock pots, blenders, nice cookware, good internet, streaming TV service, and dedicated workspaces are a bigger deal than they were in the past. And with the influx of rentals in our market, being updated to stay competitive is key. And finally, higher level of cleaning and disinfecting protocols will likely now be the new norm from here on out. So that is what she is reporting. Any questions on any of those things?
Any questions from anyone?
Was that in the form of an email?
Yes.
Yeah, she said,
Forward that to me.
Sure, I will, yes.
Okay, thank you, Paige.
You're welcome. Another thing that we are doing is a new, we're rolling out a QR code for our rental guests to use. I think Gary had wanted to explain that.
Yeah, let me do this.
There you go.
This is something that one way or another, I guess, is gonna get in every rental unit. We're gonna print these out on postcard size cards, get them in every unit. And what will wind up happening is if you scan this with your phone, if you've got a smarter phone than mine, because mine doesn't do it. What will wind up happening, let me do this again. We got to share something different. I've got to stop sharing that and then share that. If you scan that, what winds up happening is you go to this page on the website. We built another page for the website that looks like this. And this is all Tamron guest information. It's got a map of the entire property. It's got maps of each of the individual 4 properties. And what we did was we took the card. We used to print up these cards. We had hundreds of them printed up at a time. Took all that information, put it on here, different phone numbers that will come in handy. A little bit of instruction for internet access. You don't need a password on Tamron Public.
We also used to print out all of these maps and give them to
Right.
guests when they came. So we're
All
not
these maps
printing
were printed out.
The maps, we're not printing the cards. They can all, they can access all of this now by their phone.
Right. And then we put a number of what we consider to be useful links. Purgatory website, their webcams. This will go to the shuttle. The railroad, Mesa Verde, a whole variety of different links that any guests here are going to find useful. And then a link to the base camp menu. I've got to get an updated menu from Terry for Gabby and Jennifer as far as massage and reflexology is concerned. One of the big questions that is always asked is where's the closest grocery store? So we put that on here. Base Camp Market, PJ's, and City Market. And then rental property information. Tell people if you have a question about the unit that you're renting, if it's a VRBO unit, you get in touch with whoever you rent it from. But if it's any of these other outfits, those are the phone numbers. And then for our own benefit, some condo care and troubleshooting. Please don't flush handy wipes or feminine products down the toilets. If your unit phone is not working, make sure line 1 is pressed. And then outlets, we always get calls. Maintenance always gets calls that says, all these outlets are not working. Well, that's because it's on a wall switch. Just turn the wall switch on. We get that all the time. So anyway, if you scan that card, and that card should be in every rental unit, this is what you're going to get. So hopefully that will make things more convenient for guests. It's also going to save us money from not having to print up those other cards, as well as print up maps and everything else. So it's just, this was Paige's idea. She came up with this a couple of days ago, and we put together a web page. By the way, there is no link on our website, on any of the pages of our website, to this. And this page, which is going to be accessed just by guests for the most part, cannot link to other pages on our website. We just didn't want that crossover going on.
And this was also totally free.
This is totally free. Yeah.
Totally free, and Gary built this page in about 2 hours after I asked him to help me. So good job to Gary.
And I have to admit, up until Wednesday, I didn't know what a QR code was.
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was.
Gary.
Paige came in with this. I go, yeah, what do you want me to
Gary,
do?
come out of the dark ages, man.
I know. Anyway, okay. Any questions?
Just a question. So for the guests that are there for some reason can't scan
Yes.
the barcode, is there going to be a laminated copy somewhere so that they have access
Yes,
to?
so we still have all the same things we were using to provide guests with that as well.
Because there'll be some.
Yes,
There's a notary, one of them
Like
will
Gary.
know about it, because they have to do notarized documents.
Okay.
and this is what I was telling you, that the, still,
Actually,
you know, the user card.
the real estate
yeah,
guy, he
for
was
sure.
probably
Yeah.
too, but
Yeah.
Kimberly usually responds quick.
Okay, thank you. Next be the property report with Tim.
All right, couple things I wanted to highlight in our 2022 budget. We did adjust the building maintenance numbers to get closer to what we did do in 2021. We also bumped our exterior maintenance in Gamble and High Point to get caught up on some things that have never been part of the exterior maintenance program. And we also bumped the fog windows budget a little bit, just because we've been having more requests than our previous budgets have been able to support. That's all I had for the budget. And this year's capital project list is significantly shorter than last year's. simply because we've engaged an engineer to kind of help us figure out what kind of problem, if how significant the problem of the plumbing issues are in the lodge. We've got an consulting engineer engaged who is currently vetting civil engineer or mechanical engineers. We already did site survey. We took 50 to 70 pictures in each unit in the lodge. And we're currently doing some asbestos testing of drywall and we're testing the remaining lifespan of the copper. I took the copper samples this week and we look like we're in great shape on the copper, thankfully. So over the next handful of months, we're going to engage an engineer to come up with drawings so that we can get contractors to give us hard numbers for the cost of improvements, so we can make a decision. Hopefully we'll be in a position to make a decision on this thing and how we're going to handle it by the end of the year. But that's our primary capital project for this year. We did get some money approved for landscaping up at the High Point community. We got some defensible space work to do around all the communities where we've got trees too close to buildings. And we also had a little bit of parking lot work. So that's kind of what we've got in front of us for 2022.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone? Okay. Well, then the next thing will be the landscape report, and Mark Please is here. And we'll turn it over to him.
Thanks a lot, Rick. So I have a few slides that I put up so everyone can see. This is the committee has been given a report that that these slides are lifted from and abbreviated from what's in the report. The committee members are listed now on this slide. We have owners from all the communities, and I might add that all the owners are not only from all the communities, but the owners are either full-time residents or full-time growing season residents. And for that, for landscaping, I think that that's significant. We have Tim and Elisa for management. Greg is the board representative. And I just wanted to thank the committee for all the work that we've done over the past 6 months to get to where we are right now. Gary, if you could just scroll down a little bit, I thought for the membership, I would go through how we've gotten here. So at the annual meeting, Scott mentioned that there's been the attempt to form a landscape committee, and I approached the president after that meeting and asked that the committee be formed, that I would chair, and he agreed. The first meeting of the committee was in September 15th. Most of the people that are shown above attended that meeting, and the general consensus of the group is that we prepare a landscape plan. The plan was drafted. It's been circulated a number of times now, but the initial plan was drafted and circulated in October. In the November board meeting, a limited amount was funded to consult with a landscape architect by the board. That consultation was done in December. The gentleman named Dave Hart. He is a local landscape architect who is semi-retired. I think he's a real find. If you call his phone number on his website, he said he's not taking any more clients, but he's come up here and I think he's very enthused. He's like an artist with a blank canvas when he looks at Tamarron. He's very interesting and very enthused about the project. The current landscape plan that was drafted and circulated to the board this past week has had input from all. And today the committee, after this presentation, we respectfully ask that the board would endorse this plan. Gary, could I have the next? So we've developed a mission, just as stated, to develop and periodically update a comprehensive plan for approval by the TACO Executive Board to upgrade and maintain the community's grounds and landscaping to a level that is pleasing to Tamarron owners and guests. The plan will equally consider the ongoing sustainability of landscaping while addressing the changes in the mountain environment water, irrigation requirements, and limited landscaping staff. These photos below are to one of our neighbors to the south. Not to say this is exactly the type of vegetation we would see because we're about 1,000 feet higher in elevation, but it just goes to show you the type of tidiness that we're looking for in the appearance of our landscaping. Gary. So we established priorities. Priorities not necessarily in this order. Start with appearance. This is what everybody sees, and this is what everybody comments on all summer long. Employee safety is maybe should be at the top of the list, but we've got it as second. Anything that exists that would be unsafe to employees working on the landscaping should be avoided. Safety to structures is obviously important. Costs. We talk about costs at board meetings, or the board talks about costs at board meetings all the time. No one expects any change in due structure according to this landscape plan. Productivity, since we want more with the same in costs, that means we need to focus on landscape designs that increase productivity, lower maintenance. Water conservation, what we replace plantings with, we want to use less water, more suitable with our mountain environment. That's the next one. And then finally, training. Every profession has regular training, and that's just no different with landscaping staff and landscaping technology. Gary, please. So current conditions. The first thing is actually this kind of looks good considering we're in the middle of the winter, but it certainly is for me to look at the green. But the beds are overgrown, and a lot of the plants that are there not necessarily native to our terrain, or minimum maintenance, or low irrigation. And we believe that these are topics that ought to be focused upon when we do the replanting. Gary? We have trees, and I live in Gamble, and and Gary lives in Gamble. It's very apparent there. We've got trees that are on buildings, against buildings, close to buildings. They're a fire hazard. They're a safety hazard. Some of the low-lying limbs just prevent grass from growing. Gary, go to the next one, please. Same thing. These are other pictures. That staff is 6 feet high. And that's obviously those limbs are way below what a person riding a lawnmower would have to avoid. You can see branches and trees against buildings, which has led the board to approve the budget for doing fire mitigation this coming season, as Tim said, defense zone number 1. We've had overgrown shrubbery. I say had because this fall it got pruned back severely. Now we've got a lot of shrubs that have a stocky appearance. Go ahead, Gary. We've got what I call volunteers. I'm not sure where or why some of these shrubs are, but
Right behind Gambler and the south.
well, I know where they are, but I'm not sure why they are. You know, it may be that previous owners over the past 45 years had planted some of these bushes, or maybe
There's been a lot of that.
Dottie can speak to that, but we call them owners' beds. But and then the owners are gone, they've moved on, and no one is there to maintain what the previous owner planted. Carrie, please. Irrigation, there are places that either don't get irrigated or the irrigation is not working properly. We've talked about water. Irrigation, in my opinion, and I think in the committee's opinion in general, at the property ought to be tuned like a Swiss watch, especially at $25 a thousand or whatever we're paying. Gary? There's places where grass is just not growing and may never grow. It could be under low-lying trees. It could be in places that are eroded. And so, that needs to be addressed. So those are really as a thumbnail sketch of what the committee sees. And again, I want to thank everyone on the committee. And one other mention is homeowners who aren't on the committee, who we get to talk about with all summer long and make these general observations as well. So actions, these are in the draft reports. It was recommended by the committee in this report. It's a little bit more of a shall, because we're asking if the committee approve this plan. So the ornamental beds had started at High Point, and we started the excavation in the fall, or Taco started the excavation in the fall. The old fabric, and from discussions with Taryn, the fabric is one of the big obstacles that may have been planted years ago, and getting through root soil. They've been excavated and we're ready to go with a new design. Gary, please. So what the committee would like to see, and we think that would achieve our mission, is replacing the plantings with a design for minimum maintenance, minimum water requirements, and ideal for or native to the Taco Mountain environment. This is going to be a significant investment. Again, we're starting at High Point for 2022. They're semi-permanent installations. Speaking for myself and maybe some of the others around, they're permanent installations. And they must be done correctly the first time. So again, High Point is planned for the growing season in 2022. The committee would like to see the plans carefully selected. Would like to see a plan. We would like a board approved consulting landscape architect to help with that plan. As I said, we had a Dave Hart tour the site in December, and I'd strongly recommend that Dave Hart be the guy that the board approves. He's come through with a proposal and a cost that is beyond reasonable. The committee would like to see the plan before the plantings occur, would like to have an opportunity to comment. And this procedure would be evaluated by the board probably in the fall before deciding on a path forward for Gamble Oaks and Pinecone. And then finally, some of the small random beds, I'll call them landowner beds, that are here and there. We recommend that they be removed and either a low maintenance or ornamental grass be put in their place. It'll look tidier and it'll require less maintenance down the road. Tree trimming, again, the board has approved the funds for a contractor to come in and do the Defense Zone 1, as it's called, and one can go and Google the Colorado State Forest Service Defense Zone Plan and read what their defense zones are. Defense Zone 1 would look something like this photograph here, where the trees are trimmed away from the buildings, the flammable branches, not necessarily the trees. 10 feet away from the buildings, branches 15 feet above the ground, pine needles raked from the buildings so that there wouldn't be the potential for them to be a flammable surface. The board believes that it would be reasonable to ask the fire marshal from the Durango Fire Protection District to come in and inspect the work when it's done. I've been told that they would certify the work and approve the work. And with that, I think that it would give an ask for our insurance people to say, we've been certified as for Defense Zone 1. Does that get us anywhere with insurance rates? May not, but it's certainly an ask. Shrubbery, the committee believes it should be maintained neatly at the entrances. Again, it's been drastically lopped down now. We think that regular shearing will reduce the stocky appearance. These are some examples of homeowners who have elected to maintain the shrubs in front of their buildings. And we think this is a good example of how it could look with regular care. Finally, and we had this discussion a little bit at the last board meeting, but there are places, and I can speak personally on the east side of Gamble Oaks where there is no sprinklers. And it's in the summer, it's just a dust storm. It's bad for the homeowners, it's bad for the staff. We would like to see some additional zones of sprinklers put in some of these locations. In addition, sprinklers that are installed, we think there ought to be an extra effort in doing maintenance and fine tuning. There are places where sprinklers either run onto buildings and rather than grass. There's places where sprinklers, I've watched one entire zone not work all summer long and just run water onto the parking lot. So that's just something that we think needs a special attention, especially with our water use, our water cost that we've talked about. Gary, please. Finally, grass seeding. It's a maintenance item. If staff could use some additional equipment, maybe to just keep the job going. Spike irrigators, maybe that they could run behind the mower, spreaders. In certain areas, grass will not grow. And it's subject to erosion. It just doesn't look good. And the staff should consider a mulch type ground cover. I know that this is one area where my day with Dave Hart, he has some very creative solutions here with maybe rock armor, or even when we, for example, when we do the defense zone trimming, that those chips be put under the trees as a mulch rather than be hauled away. It's less expensive than hauling it away, and it's the first layer of a mulch that would look aesthetically pleasing. Very last, I think. So that's the nutshell of the plan. Again, the board has it in more detail. The committee would expect to report to the board on progress and as requested by the board. And again, our request today is that the board approve this plan. That's all I have.
You have some comments, Tim?
Yeah. Last fall, prior to the budget preparation, Taryn and I met a handful of times and came up with a proposed improvement for all of the community, all the communities. We have a detailed list of plantings and rocks and trees and really got a good handle on what we would propose to do for each community. We then took that plan and put together a labor allocation spreadsheet showing exactly how many man hours we need each month to be able to do all of this work with our staff. We feel strongly that we need to do this with our staff so that we take care of planting these plants and the trees and the rocks properly, because we're the ones that are going to be maintaining them long term. Taryn's been here 40 years?
33.
33 years. With these budget constraints, we can't do what she used to do 20 years ago. But in the past, she's been the one that comes up with the plan of what plants are going to grow, what plants are going to be available this season. And given proper, I'm going to take the blame for 2021. We didn't go into the detail of developing a plan that we have developed it prior to the budget season in November. So we feel like we've got a great head start. We've got to wait another month or so before we can even talk with the nurseries on what their plantings are going to be. We've already talked with Stan Horn and some equipment operators, so they're not going to take on a bunch of work. They're dedicated to doing our work that we need done. It's going to be limited because we're only doing High Point. But we feel like we've got a much better head start this year than we did in 2021 for sure.
We have an amazing person here in Taryn, and she's knowledgeable. And I wanted to kind of, if this report made it look like she hadn't been doing her job. That's not the case at all. She's had some hard years, the fire, the pandemic, and then now the staffing shortages. And I think this place looks amazing due to all those, despite all those things that may have hampered her. So thank you, Taryn, and I hope you don't take this as
I understand the concerns and also some of the terrible looking things. I think we mow behind Gamble Oak actually too much. Part of that is maybe in the staffing training, like you were talking about, that we really, you should not even be mowing that. But every few weeks, you need to let that grass grow. You need to change the direction of the mowing schedule. It's been kind of a free-for-all right now. Caleb's joined our staff now on the outside too. And we have so many other focus points too. We have the restaurant in service now, and we would really like it to look nice outside the restaurant deck and make it as beautiful as possible and pollinating. And I just have to say in my own defense that I know what grows here in the shade. I know what doesn't grow here. I know what grows at this altitude. I know what we have had problems with the grass before. I've always wanted to hydro mulch. We had a team, Lupin Care Service, come in and show us, because Southwest Ag stopped renting hydro mulchers. So they're no longer rented out. To buy one seems somewhat ridiculous. So we have we've had a meeting with Lupin Landscaping about, because I know grass is one of the major concerns. And if we're going to eliminate some beds, we want grass to be right and look good, like you said, the first time around. So he suggested a slip cutter, which does kind of the same sort of thing as, it's like the hydro mulch, but it's not. And there's a product that goes with it, and it's a tactifier, it's things where the birds are not just flying away with the product. And, those are some of the things. And then I just want to say that in David Hart coming on, he needs to also, if he does, pay attention to this season right now where our snowplow is shoving our snow. If you say this trophy beautiful tree is going to be right here, right off the parking lot, that might not be the place for that tree, because our snow is being shoved there. So
And I can attest to that. I've watched these snow guys. And
It's
I just,
hardcore.
I look at it and go, are you kidding me?
They
Did you
tear-
really just do that?
They
I
tear
miss-
things up. all
I
the
miss
time.
Sandy. I have to throw that out there. If Sandy could be on board here, that would be awesome, because she had an arm in it. She really wanted it to look good. And I believe, I've soul-heartedly believed my entire life here that the cosmetics start from outside the highway all the way through. Whether it's a piece of trash, I don't care what it is, it needs to look good all the way through. So it needs, and it needs consistency. We need to be on board together with Glacier Club as well. I still don't think our entrance to the lodge looks good. We have aspens there that are dead, overgrown. And that's what we've been dealing with too, is things that are overgrown. The weed barrier is a struggle, and a part of that, it's not a 20-minute job where you just go pull some weeds. It's an after whole day. It's a whole day to do the one bed at Gamble Oak that's overgrown, that's overgrown.
Gary, did you have
Gary.
something?
Yeah, I'll make a couple of points. Number one, as far as irrigation behind places is concerned, there's no irrigation behind, I think, any of the outlying areas. So we probably had better put a dollar figure on that before we go ahead and do
And
it.
there's
Well,
no hose
there-
beds
well,
either.
Yeah,
The
there's
other thing you
reasons
have to
for
watch
that.
out for
I
is
know.
the area behind, like on the east side of Gamble Oak, That's largely glacier
And
property.
Which brings me
You
to
gotta look
number,
at the plats and determine where our property line ends.
which brings me to number two. As far as fire mitigation is concerned and pruning trees and all, I know behind Gamble Oak, most of those trees that are up against buildings belong to Glacier Club. So Glacier Club is gonna have to be involved in any of this. And then the third thing I would say is, and there are times when I pass this on to Taryn, and other times I've just forgotten. In the spring, I get phone calls from owners who are just showing up for the summer, Gibson's, although, and a few other owners. And universally, owners tell me the place looks great. They say that all the time. The place really looks great. I try to pass that on to Taryn, and sometimes I forget, but I think that people need to recognize how much work this place takes. It takes a lot of work to maintain the outside in this and the landscape. So,
And we had a
that
tree
was-
service here doing their thing, and we had owners approaching them and showing them what they want to show them. And it's like, hey, we're on a schedule. We're getting this done. They weren't even able to move forward for us because they were being hounded by specific.
yeah, and
owners.
any
Like,
service
they're
that we do
in-
get in here, owners have to be told, you're not going to be directing these people to do what you think needs to be done. They're going to have their instructions, and this is what they're going to do. And please don't interfere, because that happens all the time.
I know.
I've
things
seen
are-
it happen, and an owner will approach an hourly worker, his supervisor somewhere else, and say, you need to do this. Well, he goes ahead and does it. And he shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's a training. You just have to tell the staff, with all due respect, sir or ma'am, I've been told what to do and you can go talk to whoever.
And the Peggy Gibsons are telling other owners, like, I can't even think of their names. He's airline pilot near where Jerry and Sunny used to live.
He's right there.
That guy.
They were told by Peggy to go trim their own bush behind their house. And they were very polite, very nice, whatever, but they just, in my job, hacked it up. They didn't go to the next growing out branch. I got back there, she's like, well, I made 5 piles for you. You can remove them now with the cart, and it's like, so she's created this other job off our normal job or routine. And, I just have to say that it shouldn't have happened that way. And I understand you wanting to help and do what you wanted to do.
Okay, I think we're straying a little bit from what the discussion's supposed to be
Can I
regarding
make
the
one general
committee.
Comment though,
And
everything I've just heard now, I think is absolutely consistent with the, and
Yeah.
my gosh, if we were offensive, I'm very sorry. We just, took pictures and said, and it wasn't meant to be. You do a tremendous job, Taryn,
Oh,
and
thank
with hardly anybody. And that's the purpose of this
Thank you.
plan, is to allow you to do a better job, because you're still gonna have hardly anybody. That's gonna be just a fact of life. So what we're recommending is that we're careful with some of the redo for low maintenance, low water, and to make your job easier, because in the end of the day, everybody just looks better if that happens. And that truly is the purpose of the plan. It's meant to be constructive, and it was not meant to be offensive. And if it was, I personally apologize.
No,
If I could,
propose a berm instead of a bed.
We're at the level of specificity here.
Yes, yeah, and I agree.
We,
Yeah,
this is probably not the venue to get into such detail.
Okay.
And, I think the board, first of all, echo the comments complimenting our staff who work very hard to do the best they can to make this look as good as it can. And compliment the committee for its efforts. Again, I agree, Mark. I don't know that any of this is truly inconsistent,
Nothing.
but I think the board needs to take some things under advisement and to try to meet, within realistic limitations of our staff and the good ideas that we're getting from the committee, try to blend those things into something that's doable and maintainable.
Go ahead, Rich, and then Greg wanted to make some comments too.
Okay, if I could, it seems like it's coming across a little bit like the committee has done all of this independent and without any input or consideration of the staff, Taryn in particular. And I did want to say that certainly isn't the case, and we certainly hope it didn't come across that way. And if there was any oversight at all, it was in formality, I think, not in practice. And I would just say, I noticed as we were starting the presentation today, we probably should have made Taryn a formal member of the committee, because we certainly rely on her and need her input no matter what. And so I wanted to add that. And again,
Thank you. I really
say
need
that, this isn't the committee, is trying to do something that is in opposition to the staff. We need to work with the staff.
May
Thank you.
I say something too? This is Dottie.
Go ahead, Dottie. This is Eric. I'll wait. Go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of reconfirm what Richard and Mark have just said. If we go back to the mission statement of the committee, the whole reason we got together and wanted to do this was because we wanted to be a helping source for the staff. It wasn't to replace the staff or that the staff isn't capable, but we were just trying to address in a constructive way things that could be done, because we only hear what can't be done. We know there's staff limitation. We know that they work very hard, but there's not enough people. So we know that water is an issue. So this is the premise that we started with, is how can we be, as homeowners, be helpful to the committee or to the staff, I'm sorry. And that is the purpose of why we got together. And if there is a plan that Tim and Taryn have, we would love to see that. We've been in several meetings, as Richard said, with the two, and we haven't been aware of this as far as I'm concerned. But at any rate, we're trying to be there as a helpful source, not as the inverse of that.
This is Eric. I'm going to try and come back to John. He made a comment about off in the weeds here, I think, and no pun intended, but I think the scope is really an important issue. Several of the pictures that I saw where things don't look as good as they might is because it's glacier property. And the previous boards have taken the position that we're not going to water Glacier's land. We're not going to spend a lot of time mowing and trimming Glacier's property. Is the board changed that position? Have they, I don't know whether they've endorsed the mission statement from the committee or not. I'm afraid the committee may be working on things that they weren't told are kind of outside their boundaries.
I want to bring up Sandy again, just because every year she would have a real dry, hot spot in front of her unit. No matter how we changed the irrigation up, no matter what we did, she said the monsoon would come, and she would get really excited and say it'll take care of it. And it did. Like every year the monsoons came. This year was a really dry year. Some years we have really wet years. It makes a difference.
Go ahead, Greg. Yeah, you have to move. Okay.
Yeah, I was simply going to say that, of course, thank you to Mark and the committee, and obviously, of course, our staff. What a healthy conversation. These were probably things that all needed to get discussed and talked about, and there's got to be somewhere and somehow we kind of bring all this together and get the property you know, where everybody seems to want it. So I was a little bit surprised by the overall conversation, but I appreciate the healthy conversation, and I think this gives us a great place to start. I really appreciate what the committee did in their work and their study, and just like the fact that they're so involved. And of course, we do have in Taryn and in staff, you know, folks that know the property, you know, instinctively almost. So anyway, those are just my comments for now.
One question that I have that I've gotten from a couple of people is, and this will be help the board in their consideration. With the landscape architect, are you guys proposing a makeover, total makeover, or are we looking to enhance what we've got, replace it? I mean, what is it you guys are envisioning with the architect?
And, you know, you probably heard a number. It's not a very big number. And quite frankly, in my conversations with Dave Hart, I shouldn't say this, but it's almost like he doesn't care about the number. He just thinks it's an interesting project. I envision, Taryn is obviously the quarterback that is operating, and she's everything when it comes to the landscaping at Tamrock. But every quarterback has a coach. And I envision Dave Hart as a landscape architect, as a coach that would help Taryn out. Taryn's been here, what, 35 years, 40 years. So she's had a very limited view of 2000, and you know, it's not the same landscaping in 2022 in terms of just the general, I don't know if technology is the right word, but landscape design as it was in 1974. So things have changed. Dave Hart has been a prominent landscape architect. I believe he's won awards in Durango for his whole career. So he's seen it all. So he can come in with fresh eye. And again, I don't want to get into specificity, but just walking that morning with Dave and you know, hearing, well, Taryn would say, well, people drive on the grass. And Dave said, I bet if there was a beautiful landscape boulder there, they'd have a choice. They could drive on the grass or they could bung up the front bumper of their car and we wouldn't have to look at parking blocks. An example. And just a lot of other ideas that he has that he's seen because he's had a much broader experience in life as a coach. And again, I'll say it a second time. I look at his Taryn as the quarterback, Tim and Taryn and the whole crowd as the doers. But a landscape architect coming in with fresh ideas as a coach, and at least the chemistry I saw between Taryn and Dave that day that we walked, I think Taryn seemed very enthused about having some of this fresh stuff brought in where they could work together. You know, is that a pretty good statement, Taryn? I don't want to speak for you.
I have a hard time answering that because we're doing the same thing, and it is a blank canvas.
Yeah, and again,
And I want the board's input. I want to thank the board too. I'm glad there's a new, well, not the board, but the committee that is come about, and I think it's great, honestly. I think we've needed that. I think we need input. I think we want to know from our owners. It's hard to satisfy everyone. One person wants native look, the other person wants trim and proper look. And it's hard to make it work for everybody, but we need something that can be done once and
done right.
But I don't know why you think that we need this outside entity to do it right, is my question. Because we come from the same material, we know what grows and doesn't grow. And like I asked you to visit before, just the snow plow and what he designs. I'm not happy with the appearance of it right now. And 9 of those years of my 33 were actually the horticulturist leaf club. So I have pretty self background. I inherited these things. The pillar plants were already there. I didn't choose those. I
Okay.
would never have chosen them.
Okay, I think at this point, I echo John's comments. I don't think as a board, we're prepared to make a final decision today. We will take everything under advisement and, we'll have communications and at a later time, maybe.
I have a question, Rick, for Mark. Mark, did you say that you had distributed the report to the board?
I did not distribute it to the board. Rick,
I thought I sent it out to everybody, Jerry.
If so, Rick, I may have missed it, but I didn't think that I had gotten it.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. So we'll, the board will take it under advisement and we will definitely revisit this shortly. One comment I will say is that Joe, John, and I discussed last night, there had previously been a committee that was authorized. So we don't have to formally authorize the committee to, we don't have, all we have to do is just provide it. So,
Yeah, the committee, there was a committee in the past. It had kind of gone dormant. So thank you for reviving it. And so it is a standing committee and, yeah. So,
yeah, and I've just gone by the bylaws, which says the president forms a committee.
yeah.
So-
And I do want to thank all the members on the committee for the efforts they've put forth so far. We did get some things going this year, and that's due to you guys. We did have some struggles last year with the personnel, mainly in getting people to, just like everybody else, we're having problems getting and maintaining people. And that's been a real challenge. And we hope to help do that in the future, however we choose to proceed. That's going to be a real key component of it, is getting the maintenance going on. When I say maintenance, I mean maintaining what we do have in place. However we go.
Can I make 2 comments?
Quickly.
One is, 3 months before the planting season, and I'll let the other board members or committee members jump in. But, if, however we move forward, we would like to remain relevant as committee.
Yes.
And we would like, if there's going to be a plan, if whether that we bring in Dave Hart or not, obviously the committee believes we should bring in Dave Hart. That we be provided a plan that we can comment on. So then that maintains our relevance. The second thing is for people, 2 days ago, I got my quarterly magazine from Fort Lewis, and they have a fantastic program up there in the biology department with native landscaping and such, and they have what they call nerds, landscapers. I'll bet there's some great summer temporary help that could be found up there at the college for this purpose, the landscape nerds. So I'll be.
That's a good idea.
It sounds promising.
Yeah. These
So-
landscape birds.
Rick,
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Rick, I just want to piggyback on what Mark said, and is if the committee is to have any relevance at all, then we have to be provided with a plan so that we know where we're headed. And that was certainly an important part of why we wanted to bring an outside landscape architect on board, so that we could have a long-term plan, so we know what we're working towards. And so again, if we're going to have a committee that has any relevance, I think that it's fair to ask that if Taryn and Tim have long-term plans and they have it drawn up and laid out, then we ought to be able to look at it.
Okay. That's fair. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on at this
Thank you.
point. Thank you, Mark. And again, thank you to all the committee members. Under unfinished business, one of the things that's come up from the last call we've had regarding the exploring the piping program is asbestos testing. We had allocated money for asbestos testing in the lodge. One thing that had come up on that last call was possibility of testing in the outlying areas. I don't know, have we got a definite figure back from Bergman?
No, I do not have.
Okay.
It's gonna be, it's gonna be like 18,000 or 20,000.
Yeah. So we're looking at 9,700 to do the lodge and roughly double that if we do the outlying areas. So what I'm asking right now is we need to decide, is it worth it to us to go ahead and test the outlying areas or just confine it to the lodge?
Could I add one thing, Rick?
Sure.
When an asbestos company tests a building, the asbestos testing company is obligated to send the test results to the asbestos department at the state of Colorado. Just FYI.
So yeah, I just, at this point, comments from the other board members. I mean, me personally, I'm in favor of just testing the lodge. We're doing a lot of things on this and we're starting to sink a lot of money into it, and I would like to hold back on what's going on.
As watcher of the purse strings, I agree.
Yeah. Because even though, we did question Bergman and they did say if we did do testing, it would be valid for quite a long period of time. However, I don't know that we want to go ahead and do that at this point in time.
I think the construction of the lodge is vastly different than the construction of the outlying buildings.
Yeah.
And I think if we're going to find asbestos, this is the building where we're going to find it. The
Yeah.
outlying buildings, a lot less likely.
Well, and in everything that the communications we've had with Dave Dunn is they've never really found it in the buildings. Where some has been found, and it's in current construction materials.
Yeah, there's
Up
trace
to,
amounts of it.
up to 1%
Yeah.
asbestos in current construction materials. And so you will find trace amounts anytime there's been a remodel.
You can buy drywall mud down at Home Depot today, and if you had it tested, you'd find trace amounts of asbestos in it.
So for me, I'm in favor of just going ahead and limiting it to the lodge, but I wanted to get the rest of the board's opinion on that.
I don't recall how they identify the outlying area. How do they identify where? And I don't recall that.
It would be, we would just have to pick what units would be tested and stuff like that.
Hey, Kathy, we're doing 28 random units in this building to get a representative sample. High Point, Pinecone, and Gamble, we'd have to do probably 55 to 60 tests in that many units to get a representative sample.
In each complex?
No,
Or in overall?
Total.
Rick and Tim, I'm sorry, I may have missed it. Do we know yet what the incremental cost would be for the additional asbestos testing in the outlying areas? Is there any?
We hadn't got anything back from Bergman yet.
based on the unit price per test in the lodge, if you multiply it out, it's 18 to $20,000
In addition, or?
in addition.
In addition.
In that case, my feeling is that I'm inclined to go along with what Rick said. Because we have these things going on this year. Maybe we should start with the lodge and see, first of all, if we really do have any asbestos problem in the lodge. If it turns out we don't have any asbestos problem in the lodge and we don't have plumbing issues in the outlying buildings, then maybe we're good for some period of time. However, if asbestos does show up in the lodge with the testing that's done there, then I think we may want to reconsider down the road.
And I think that'd be a prudent action.
Yeah, I would support what Jerry just said, but I can remind you all that by Colorado law and by federal law, you have to provide a safe workplace. So if you do find it, I think you have an obligation, it's not a may, I think it's should.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good. Let's go with that plan.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, really the last thing that I had, and that would be under, or actually there were, we'll just go with this last thing. We had a suggestion by one of our owners for a finance committee. And Dan Noonan had communicated to all the board members, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to give us his thoughts and what he envisions for that committee.
Thank you, Rick. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So good morning, Rick, and thanks again for allowing me to speak. And I know this meeting is getting long, so I'll try and be short, succinct, and to the point. My wife and I have lived in Durango since 1975, believe it or not. I came here to build Tamaron from Massachusetts, but 3 days across the country, Mr. Wadsworth decided to stop the construction and the phase. So I didn't have a job when we moved here. But long story short, I ended up spending 11 years with Safeway, 10 years as a career volunteer, and 29 years, 10 years as a volunteer and 29 years as a career firefighter here. I helped along with Greg Drover, for those of you who've been a while, remember him, and a gentleman by the name of Bill Cowan, start the fire department that protected Tamaron. So I've been involved with Tamaron since 1975. My wife and I have lived most recently for the last 28 years in Rockwood. And we decided after I retired in 2016 that it was time to do a little bit more traveling and relaxing. So we decided to downsize and become minimalist. And we ended up back here at Tamaron. So we're at 728 in Gamble Oak, and completely remodeled our unit. So I'm being here now for about 2 years and listening to the challenges in the past, current, and possibly in the future. I keep hearing the board talk about how they would like to get involvement of the owners and make sure that we truly live in a community. And one area that I think I'm pretty good at is budgeting. I spent over 30 years working on budgets. When I left the fire department in 2016, I oversaw 73 career firefighters, 80 volunteers, 16 fire stations, and a budget in excess of $11 million. I left them with over $8 million in their fund balance when I retired in 2016. And I know you've been in extremely good hands with Joe Carey, but what I'm looking at is when we look at our challenges, it always comes down to, and you were just talking about it and have talked about it all day long, it always comes down to money. And if we could potentially look at a small committee made up of one person from each region, so High Point, Lodge, Pinecone, and Gamble Oak, and create a committee along with Joe, or however the board would like to put it together, we can work on it as a team. The idea here would be that each committee member in those regions and those segments would talk to their community, and kind of compartmentalize this. And we would just help Joe and the board go through the budget every year and see, try to bring ideas forward, some fresh aspects. When I look and I get an opportunity to speak with a lot of homeowners, there is a vast amount of knowledge and experience in those 304 owners in this development. To tap into that could only enhance where we're headed and the challenges that we're being faced. So in concept and quickly, that's my thought and my idea. And the board would help define exactly what the committee would do, wouldn't do. If chosen, I would be willing to assist, but if not, that's the board's choice.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We appreciate your input and your thoughts and suggestions. I would think that this would be another similar thing where we couldn't make a decision right now. We would need to have some further discussions amongst the board. And if we do have some questions about it, we will get back with you. Is there any questions from anybody else or comments regarding that? Either the board or from any of the other owners?
I have a question, Rick, for Dan. Dan, thanks for your suggestion. Have you participated during the budget workshops that the board has conducted since you've been back up at Tamaron to see?
I listened to the one last year and I listened to the one this year. The little bit of challenge that I found, and this could just been me, is on the first day, the board talks about it and talks about it in detail, but those in the community are not allowed to have input until the following second day. And to me, it sounds like, and then the second day is there's a lot of information, so I don't feel that it was as easy for me to throw in questions here or there. And I was looking at something maybe that allows, again, without taking up the board's time, allows those in the communities to have more of an open format, sitting at a table face to face. And each one of those 4 members then gets a chance to talk to their little community and bring forward other concepts. But that was my idea, Jerry, but yes, I have been involved in the last 2 years.
Good. Okay. A couple of things. Practically speaking, during the budget workshop, we have an immense amount of material to go through that has been prepared in advance. And that budget workshop would not be an appropriate place for, I think, for general inputs. However, I would point out that every owner has a chance to forward ideas or suggestions in advance to any and all of the board members for things that they might want to see in the budget or question of the budget. So the process that we go through every year has been kind of streamlined because we have a lot of experience between the staff and especially people who've been on the board for a while, of knowing pretty much what we need to allocate in order to keep operations going, and that's pretty well known. We also have an opportunity to put in new items. We have the whole capital budget for consideration. So I guess what I would say is that things are working pretty well, in my opinion, currently about how we get the budget set up year to year. And of course, the person responsible more than anybody for making sure that process is extremely efficient is Joe, and who's been, doing this for a very long time. And also our property operations manager, Tim, provides a lot of information and costing and things like that that go into this. So my personal opinion is that we have a good process in place already. There is always room for people to make suggestions. My opinion at this point, until I get swayed to change my mind, is that an additional committee is not really warranted for the budget. But if you have, ideas, by all means, submit your ideas to the board. And again, I appreciate your looking into this, and I appreciate your experience and background.
Rick, I have one request. Is it possible between now and the time the board considers this to assure that all of the members are given a copy of this suggestion?
Yes. Yes,
So-
I thought you'd send it to everybody on the board.
I only sent, I'm sorry, I did send it to all the board members. I'm saying, can this suggestion be sent out to all of the owners?
Yeah, we can.
Can Gary take care of getting that
You
out
can-
to the owners?
We can solicit comments about it.
You can do a survey.
Yeah,
Can Gary take care of sending it out to all the owners?
Yes, that's no problem.
Thank you.
Email it to me, Dan.
All right, will do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
okay, that pretty much concludes everything that we had for the open meeting.
New business.
Well, that was the new business.
Oh, well, I've got a new business item.
Okay,
I didn't hear you say you went from unfinished business to new business.
yeah, okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
So at the last budget meeting, a couple of owners brought up a suggestion. Wayne Alexander, and I think it was kind of seconded and
Okay.
added on to by Eric Tibbetts, to consider what's being called a capital contribution fee. And this is something that is in the HOA world, both here locally and across the country, something that's become in vogue. Basically, it's when a new purchase is made of an existing condominium unit in a homeowners association, that new owner is required to pay a fee, that an amount of money at closing that is then directly deposited to the association's reserve funds. The philosophy behind this is that the owners who are here now and have been here for a long time have been through their dues, contributing to the reserves. As I pointed out in the financial statement review, we have close to $850,000 in reserves. Everybody in this room that's an owner of Tamaron has a stake in that, has contributed to that. All of you that are online have a stake in that, have contributed to that. And when a new owner comes in and may benefit from a project such as, say, when the elevators were put into the lodge, the old elevators were upgraded and at great cost. And so now any new owners in the lodge get to enjoy that, but they didn't contribute to the funding over the years that through the contributions to the reserves. So I took a look at this, did a little research, talked to our attorney, who, by the way, has done a half a dozen of these. She manages 20 plus HOAs in the local area, including ours, from a legal standpoint, doing transactional business. And she indicated that she's done a handful of them. She's got a couple of cautions that I'll throw out after a bit. But to put some numbers around it, I looked at the last 10 years of our contributions to reserves, and our net contributions to reserves over the last 10 years has been about $550,000. If you do simple math and divide that up amongst the owners that are here now, any owner who's been an owner for at least for all of those 10 years has contributed $1,442 to that amount through their contributions to the reserves from their HOA assessments. It's a rough calculation. It's not obviously more. Some owners, higher assessment fees for larger units versus smaller units. So, but that's an average. Across the country, what has typically been a number that HOAs have applied to this is 2 to 3 months of HOA fees. If we had done this last year, if we had this in place last year and assessed 2 months of HOA fees to every new unit, that would be the HOA fees assessed, that would be then assessed to that unit type, whatever it was, a lodge unit, a C unit, a B unit, whatever. We would have put an additional $55,000 into our reserves. So we're not talking about small money here. Our attorney, Christina Landeryu, cautioned that while she's seen this being done, right now, Colorado law does not, it's silent on this. There's no language in Colorado statute that governs this type of a thing, this type of an assessment levied by HOAs on new owners. And as you know, Colorado Common Interest Ownership Act covers pretty much everything to do with HOAs. And we're subject to that. What she sees coming down the line is that some of the associations that are charging large fixed fees, thousands of dollars, or a percentage of sell price, which either one of those she says shy away from. She says 2 to 3 months dues is probably reasonable and should be safe to do. So what I'd like to propose, this is going to require a condominium declarations amendment. It's going to require an update, vote of the owners. The owners will have to vote on this. It would require 66 2/3% of vote of the board, and then 51% of the owners. If the board did not vote to approve it at 66 2/3%, if only 2 or 3 board members approved, which I can't see happening, then the owners would have to have the higher level 66 2/3. So at 51% of the owners, it's probably something that can get passed pretty easily. What I'd like to do is proposes to have the board authorize me to work with Christina Landeryu on this, draft an amendment to the declarations, and submit that to the board for approval to get the vote done. And I'd like to do this as soon as possible, because if we wait till the end of this year to do it, we won't be able to collect any money on it.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you want the board to take the lead on this?
No, I'll take the lead on it. I want the
authorize-
board to
authorize
authorize
Joe
Joe to
to
take the
work
lead
with
on it.
Christina.
I'll work with Christina. I'll get a draft of the amendment together and then bring it to the board for approval.
But by involving legal counsel, the board is essentially putting its stamp of approval on the presentation of this to the owners.
Well, the board will have to vote on it. The board will have to vote to put this to a vote of the owners, and the board will have to approve it at a 66 2/3% level. That's 5 out of 7.
I'm just trying to figure out who should originate this. Should this be an owner initiated? For instance, Wayne could propose this. And
I don't
I mean,
know.
any owner can propose this. I guess what I'm saying is by getting us to approve
I'm an
legal,
owner, not a board member.
you could do it too.
That's what I'm
I
doing.
guess, well, then you should write it and send it to us. I'm saying that, yeah,
Well,
I think what I'm saying is by asking us to approve expending money for legal counsel to assist in this, it's essentially, I think, asking the board to be the driver.
I don't
You're
know.
asking for a written request from Joe to the board.
Well, anybody can,
Right.
anybody can propose a change in the DCCRs. It doesn't require, the board is not the initiator of that in all cases. It is in some cases. Now, if it's a good idea, maybe the board needs to be the pusher here. I'm just saying I think we expend funds on it, we essentially are supporting it. And maybe that's what we should do.
I think if it's verbal or, I mean, you verbally have just asked.
I think I did.
Yeah, well, and
I mean, and I could, this
technically-
is all written notes. I
Yeah.
could formalize it and submit it to you if you want.
well, and realistically, this is the third time it's been proposed to the board. Eric originally brought it up, and then Wayne Alexander at the last meeting. And then now this time. So-
Well, if the board is amenable, then it would seem to me that going down the path that Joe suggests means that really the board is taking ownership of this. And the board is then gonna ask its counsel to help it draft a DCCR change that
Right.
will then be presented at the board and voted on by the board. If it gets 2/3, then it can go forward. So I guess that's what I'm
So, yeah,
saying. Are we supporting this?
Well, that's why I'm asking the board somebody to make a motion to approve that we pursue this, and the board can vote on it now to give me that authority to go forward with Christina and get the draft put together to come back and
Well,
ask.
I think the ask here would be for Christina to draft something for us to consider that meets the specifications of Kyle.
Yeah, she and I have already kind of begun discussions on this. She's pointed out a number of things that, for instance, do you want to exempt certain transactions? Transactions within a family, transactions from a private owner to a trust, you know, so those kinds of things. Yeah. And she's done a handful of these already, so she has some language that she knows works.
And I did I think it was in November, I sent an email to her asking her to assist us with this also.
Well, since you are the liaison between council, I think it's within your purview to ask her to work with Joe in composing a potential change to the DCCRs along these lines. And that's all that needs to be done right now.
Okay.
You know, you are the president who deals with council, and in your judgment, this is worth doing.
Yes.
So that's what we do.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay, with that, that concludes everything that we had. Is there anything else from anyone out there on the call they'd like to bring up?
Hey, Rick, one thing I'm just going to throw out there, we meet 4 times a year, but there's so many different things that happen, at any given time. Maybe we look at a couple of workshops intermittently. Having Dan suggest using some of his time and expertise, of course, Mark and that whole committee. And I'd love to keep that momentum going. And, I know no one wants to do any additional meetings and take up that time, but I know that sometimes workshops, just open discussions, no one's voting on anything, can be really helpful. If nothing else, just sharing information. One of the things that I noted during, Mark's presentation and where, our staff, what they do, how they do it, some of the challenges, but then the successes that they have that sometimes people don't even know about. So, and again, I'm throwing this out there. Workshop may not be the proper term, but I just think maybe there can be a little bit more involvement, back and forth communication. I don't know what that looks like yet. I'm happy to try to formulate something, but I would hate to lose the momentum. We've got so many folks now that are willing to jump in and help, and I want to keep them there. So just throwing that out there.
Okay, that's something you and I can talk about.
Okay, cool.
We'll do that. So, okay, at this point, we're going to go into executive session. We have a couple things we need to discuss. We will come out of executive session solely for the purpose of formally concluding the meeting. So there will not be any more open discussion. There's nothing else to vote on. So thank you to everyone who joined in and participated, and we will go ahead and go into executive session now.
You have a way to get the other board members back.
I don't think we've gotten a separate Zoom invitation to join the executive session.
Gary sent one out.
I sent that out this morning.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Gary. I thought that was the one that I used to log into the,
No, there were two links on there, one for this meeting and then one for the executive session.
thank you, Gary. I didn't read carefully.
Well, Jerry.
Well, let's
My
go ahead.
my eyes were too weary after reading all of the water and sewer agreements.
Do you want to just stop all this recording? And
Yes.
Just close this meeting.
Close
completely?
this meeting.
Close the meeting completely. Okay.